He didn't simply drown, he was silenced. Just moments before his tragic and unexpected death, Malcolm-Jamal Warner made a chilling phone call to someone close to him, claiming he felt like he was being watched. And now, for the first time, his mother, Pamela Warner, is breaking her silence. Was this really just an unfortunate accident, or are we looking at something far more sinister? What he knew had the power to bring down some very powerful figures, and now he's gone. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear has never been made public until now. The sudden passing of Malcolm-Jamal Warner shook the entertainment world to its core, leaving longtime fans of The Cosby Show stunned and heartbroken. The official reports labeled it as a tragic drowning, but troubling questions are beginning to emerge. His devastated mother, Pamela Warner, doesn't believe the official narrative, and honestly, neither should we. In this exclusive deep dive, we'll trace the disturbing timeline leading up to his final moments, examine the eerie silence from those closest to him, and explore a series of cryptic warnings he reportedly issued before the end. Just days before his death, Malcolm is said to have given signs that something wasn't right. Was he preparing to expose something much bigger than we ever imagined? You'll hear accounts from close friends, industry insiders, and even quiet whispers from Hollywood elites. This story is messy, emotional, and truly explosive. You won't believe who could be involved or what Malcolm might have uncovered that may have cost him his life. So stay with me as we begin to peel back the layers of this heartbreaking mystery, because here's where things start getting interesting. He was healthy, grounded, and finally at peace. That's how those who were close to Malcolm-Jamal Warner described him in the days leading up to the tragedy. At 54, he was stepping into a new chapter, working behind the scenes as a producer, guiding young talent, and even teasing a major tell-all memoir that, according to sources, could have rocked the entire industry. Even though he stayed mostly out of the public eye, Malcolm had been quietly developing several major projects. One of them, insiders claim, was focused on shedding light on the manipulation, toxicity, and abuse hidden within the entertainment world. Some even say it would have included never-before-heard revelations from his time on The Cosby Show. He was collecting evidence. A longtime friend who wished to remain anonymous said he had documents, receipts. He straight up told me, if anything happens to me, it's not an accident. But something shifted. What caused things to spiral from peaceful to chaotic? According to multiple people close to him, Malcolm began showing signs of intense paranoia roughly a week before he died. He reportedly confided in his mother, Pamela Warner, that he felt like someone was tailing him. Another source shared that he suddenly pulled out of 2 interviews, saying he needed time to get things in order, whatever that meant. But perhaps the most chilling detail is a voicemail Malcolm allegedly left on a friend's phone just 48 hours before he was found dead. His voice was quiet, serious, and trembling. The message reportedly said, "Yo, something's off. I'm being watched. I don't know who I can trust anymore. If something happens to me, it wasn't by my own hand. Don't let them tell you otherwise." Those close to him brushed it off at least at first. Maybe it was stress. Maybe it was just anxiety. But now, in light of his suspicious and sudden death, no one's brushing off a single word. And here's where things get even more bizarre. It was meant to be a peaceful escape. According to multiple reports, Malcolm-Jamal Warner had been staying at a private lakeside retreat just outside of Los Angeles, a spot he often went to in order to step away from the chaos of Hollywood. It wasn't unusual for him to head out there while working on personal projects, but what unfolded that night has only left behind more questions than answers. Authorities initially claimed that he drowned by accident. No indications of foul play, no forced entry, no injuries. Just an unfortunate, tragic incident. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. Malcolm was a skilled swimmer. He trained consistently. Friends say he often swam laps to relax and manage stress. So how could someone that's strong, in good shape, drown in calm, still water? And then there's the issue of the 911 call, or more accurately, the lack of one. Records show a 3-hour window between the last time he was seen alive and when emergency responders were finally alerted. Who else was present with him? Why such a delay? And why hasn't law enforcement released the full recording of that call? Even stranger, the only official statement released by police was vague and brief. No signs of struggle, case closed, pending toxicology. And still, The toxicology report has yet to be released to the public. That's when Pamela Warner, Malcolm's mother, steps into the picture. According to insiders close to the family, Pamela has been livid behind the scenes. She reportedly demanded an independent autopsy after being told she wouldn't be allowed to view her son's body, a decision that immediately raised alarm bells. Sources close to Pamela claimed the private autopsy revealed bruises along the rib cage and attempts to cover them up. These were quiet injuries that didn't line up, a family insider shared. But Pamela isn't backing down. She's convinced her son was deliberately targeted, and honestly, a lot of fans feel the same way. The internet erupted with speculation the moment the news dropped. Justice for Malcolm was trending within hours, and fans began dissecting his final social media posts, many of which were cryptic. One read, "You can't be silent forever. Truth claws its way out." Another simply stated, "The walls are closing in." Were these just poetic lines from a creative project? Or were they something more, coded messages or desperate cries for help? But perhaps the most disturbing part is this: several of the key people closest to Malcolm have gone completely silent. And at least one former castmate from The Cosby Show is said to have flat out refused to comment publicly. Why? Behind that charismatic smile, those powerful performances, and his quiet Hollywood demeanor, Malcolm-Jamal Warner had been secretly working on something big, something explosive. According to several sources close to him, Malcolm had been collecting information for what many now believe was a game-changing project, reportedly titled Behind the Curtain. This project was rumored to be either a manuscript or a docuseries, based on his own first-hand experiences in the entertainment industry, but it didn't stop there. Word has it, the material included exclusive interviews, legal files, and personal testimonies revealing what truly happens behind the scenes of television's elite. One insider close to the project shared that Malcolm wasn't driven by anger, he was simply focused. He wasn't trying to stir up drama, he was after the truth. He wanted to liberate those still stuck in a broken system. And this is where things begin to align. In recent years, the once celebrated legacy of The Cosby Show has been severely damaged by the disturbing scandals surrounding Bill Cosby. While other cast members publicly distanced themselves from the fallout, Malcolm chose to remain mostly silent. Until recently, a journalist who sat down with Malcolm in late 2024 claimed that he hinted at something much darker, something still hidden. "What the public knows is just the tip of the iceberg," Malcolm reportedly told the journalist. "There's so much more, but people are scared to speak. I'm not afraid anymore." And then suddenly he's gone. Now let's look at who may have had something to lose. Some fans and conspiracy theorists believe the timing of Malcolm's death wasn't coincidental. Reports say Malcolm was preparing to speak at a private summit for whistleblowers in the entertainment industry. One of the expected speakers was a well-known survivor, who was allegedly ready to reveal names connected to a decades-old abuse ring. That summit was abruptly canceled following Malcolm's death. And here's where things get even stranger. Documents from Malcolm's storage unit reportedly vanished. According to an anonymous employee, external hard drives were removed, files were wiped clean, and just like a movie, surveillance footage from that exact day mysteriously malfunctioned. Coincidence or calculated cover-up? Another insider, who claims to have read early drafts of Malcolm's expose, revealed that he was planning to expose the manipulation of young black actors, the exploitation woven into family sitcoms, and one powerful network executive who had allegedly tried to silence him years ago, back when he first dared to speak out about the inequalities plaguing the industry. He knew too much, and he was getting way too close, said one source. If this had been made public, it would have destroyed people's careers, big names, people with power, wealth, and deep connections. And that's when you really have to stop and ask, was Malcolm's death truly just a tragic accident? Or was it a calculated warning to anyone thinking of speaking out? But wait, it doesn't end there. In the days following Malcolm-Jamal Warner's shocking passing, fans held their breath. They waited for answers, waited for a statement, waited for something to make them feel like this wasn't as dark as it seemed. But instead, there was silence until Pamela Warner, Malcolm's mother and lifelong protector, finally spoke out with a message that sent shockwaves through the public. Through her family's legal representative, Pamela released a statement that read, "My son did not die by accident. I do not accept the narrative being presented. Too many questions remain, and I won't stop until I get the truth." She went on to say that she had seen injuries on Malcolm's body, injuries that didn't align with what authorities were claiming. She was convinced her son had been targeted because of what he knew. And if that sounds like the voice of a grieving mother searching for meaning, think again. Because those closest to Pamela are echoing the same exact concerns. His cousin, a lifelong best friend, and even a former Cosby Show castmate have all quietly voiced their doubts. One close friend who asked to remain unnamed said, "Pamela's strong. But what she's facing, this isn't grief, this is war." Then came the funeral. And something about it didn't sit right. It was private, extremely private. Only a tight inner circle was allowed to attend, and all media were completely shut out. But insider leaks from those present described the atmosphere in a single word: tense. It didn't feel like a farewell. "It didn't feel over," one person said. It felt like something was being hidden. And here's where things get truly unsettling. Just 2 days after Malcolm was laid to rest, someone reportedly broke into his former apartment in Los Angeles. According to sources close to Pamela, nothing of obvious monetary value was taken, but personal items, including specific files, journals, and electronics, were missing. The intruder skipped over cash, ignored valuable jewelry, and vanished without leaving any trace. Even more chilling? The security footage from that night was completely wiped. And Pamela, she doesn't think this was just a random burglary. She reportedly confided in a friend. They were looking for something. They don't want his story getting out. And then came the threats. Friends and associates of the family began receiving anonymous warnings. Strange late-night phone calls. Cryptic emails from untraceable domains. Even burner accounts slipping into the DMs of people who were close to Malcolm, all carrying the same chilling message: drop it. Let him rest. Don't dig too deep. So what exactly is happening here? Is someone really trying to erase Malcolm's legacy, or are we witnessing a powerful institution doing everything it can to cover its tracks? Either way, Pamela isn't backing down. She's reportedly hired a private investigative team, one with ties to former federal agents. She's reopened channels with trusted journalists her son worked with, and she is said to be in possession of a digital archive Malcolm left behind, including password-protected files. Files he told her never to open unless something ever happened to him. Sources claim those files remain sealed for now. But Pamela has every intention of opening them, and when she does, she plans to go public. Could the answers lie within? Or will we ever truly uncover what Malcolm was about to reveal? Normally, after the loss of a beloved television icon, especially someone as recognizable as Malcolm-Jamal Warner, you'd expect a flood of tributes and heartfelt memories. After all, his role as Theo Huxtable wasn't just another part, it became part of America's cultural identity for generations. He helped shape how a whole generation of young black men were seen on television. But strangely, that outpouring of love never fully came. Sure, there were a handful of generic posts, a brief message on Instagram here, a couple of lines on Twitter there, but what stood out was the absence of major tributes from the big names in Hollywood and from the networks that once thrived on the Cosby Show's legacy. One fan asked bluntly, "Why isn't anyone talking about Malcolm?" No tribute shows, no specials. Not even a proper goodbye from the studio that made him a household name. Something's clearly off. And in this case, the silence is louder than any speech. Let's talk about who's not speaking and why that silence matters. A number of key figures who worked closely with Malcolm, former cast members, directors, even producers, have refused to make any public statements. Sources suggest some of them were advised by legal counsel to avoid involvement altogether, while others just completely disappeared from the conversation. But why? What are they afraid of? One veteran entertainment journalist, with over 2 decades of experience covering Hollywood, sighed, "This feels exactly like what happens when a larger, more powerful force is behind the scenes. You can sense the fear. People want to speak, but they're terrified they might be next." Leaked DMs and industry forum posts suggest that at least 2 actors, both former Cosby Show alumni, were preparing to participate in interviews, but both reportedly backed out without warning. One of them allegedly confided in a friend, "I can't risk it. I've got a family." And what does that tell you? It suggests this may go far beyond just Malcolm. This could be part of something much bigger. Meanwhile, the public? They haven't stayed quiet. In fact, they've only gotten louder. Hashtags like hashtag stalker justice for Malcolm, hashtag investigate Malcolm Warner, and hashtag protect Pamela Warner have taken over platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. Creators across the internet are producing mini documentaries, TikTok threads, and breakdowns, all questioning the official story and dragging mainstream media for barely even covering his death. One viral video with over 3 million views asks the hard question: how does someone with 3 decades of cultural impact get less media attention than a scandal from a reality TV star? Are we really supposed to believe that's just coincidence? Now, fans are pushing for a full independent investigation. Multiple online petitions are calling on the LAPD to reopen the case, citing the private autopsy conducted by Pamela Warner, the still missing toxicology report, and a growing list of suspicious inconsistencies. Then came the whispers. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere is shifting. Insider rumors suggest that more people are preparing to come forward, among them a former production assistant from the Cosby Show era, who allegedly witnessed disturbing behavior during filming and has remained silent all these years. According to one anonymous insider, they're finally ready to speak. Malcolm wasn't the only one who held these truths. Others know too, but his death may be the spark that finally blows the doors wide open. This could turn into one of the most explosive Hollywood unravelings since the Weinstein scandal. And to think it all began with a so-called drowning. No one truly believes it was just that. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just another actor. He was intelligent, grounded, soulful, and deeply human. His role as Theo Huxtable marked one of the earliest portrayals of a young black male on TV that wasn't built on trauma or stereotypes. He gave people hope. He gave young men someone they could relate to. But behind that impactful on-screen presence stood a man of purpose, quiet resistance, and depth. He mentored younger talent. He spoke his truth without ever needing to shout. He lived with integrity, and now it's becoming disturbingly clear that he may have died because of it. So the questions still linger loud and unanswered. Why? According to reports, was Malcolm's body covered in bruises that don't match up with drowning? Why was there a 3-hour delay before emergency services were contacted? Why was Pamela Warner denied access to her son's body before the autopsy? Why is the toxicology report still being withheld from the public? Why are major studios and former co-stars keeping completely silent? Why, just days after his passing, did someone break into his apartment and only take documents, not valuables? Why did Malcolm say he felt watched, followed, and targeted just days before he died? And most importantly, what exactly was Malcolm trying to reveal? What truth was he preparing to expose? And who would go to these lengths to ensure that truth never surfaced? A mother's fight. A legacy in jeopardy. Pamela Warner refuses to allow her son's death to be brushed aside or buried like another unsolved case. She's fighting not only for answers but for Malcolm's truth, his voice, his message, the one they may have tried to silence, but couldn't erase completely. She reportedly holds the keys to a digital archive left behind by Malcolm, filled with voice recordings, notes, and sensitive documents, and what's inside. It might change everything. Now, the world is watching. Not because the mainstream media is doing its job, but because you are, the fans, the seekers of truth, those who still believe in justice. Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't simply drown, he was drowned by a system that punishes truth-tellers. In an old interview, he once said, "I've seen too much. I've stayed silent for too long. I just want to be honest now." And maybe that honesty was the very thing some couldn't afford to let the world hear. But here's what they didn't count on. His voice doesn't fade just because he's gone. It only gets louder. Through Pamela. Through all of you. Through platforms like this. So if this story moved you, if you believe Malcolm deserves just help keep the momentum alive, like this video to show your support. Drop a comment below. Do you believe his death was a tragic accident or something far more deliberate? Subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive or following this story wherever it leads. And share this video with everyone who loved Malcolm, who watched The Cosby Show, who deserves to know the truth, because this This is not the end. This is only the beginning.